thing about stand-up is that it doesn't matter who you are, you have a story to tell. And there's an interesting part of your life. And if you can deliver it with humor, it's going to be really impactful.
Ryan Kelly, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Tommy. Happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. For our audience, can you please just start by telling everyone a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do?
My name's Ryan Kelly. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and my life has been kind of a weird series of events where I went to college, I studied some certain things, and then I ended up going and I worked at Disneyland, and after that I went into comedy, and now I tend to fight fraud online, and I mess with scammers a lot. So it's been a really fun little series of adventures.
What inspired you to create your social media pages and begin creating your content? And are there any specific themes that you try to highlight within your content? I know you mentioned fraud and so forth, but anything included in that as well?
Yeah, I think that pretty much every part of my life that has led to any semblance of success has always started with failure. And what ended up happening is actually getting into stand-up itself was because I couldn't make an improv team that I really wanted to do. And so I was like, okay, well, stand-up is the only thing that I can control myself, so I'll do that. And after that, I ended up moving out to LA, and I was working a lot of hours to pay rent, so I didn't have the time to go up and test new material. So I wanted to test new material online, and that's how I started posting to Instagram. This was before Reels or any of those things that could help you grow, so there was no growth and no one saw it, except for a buddy of mine named Casey, who said, you know, you should probably post this to TikTok. And I was like, never heard of it, sounds dumb. And he was very right, and now my life has been forever changed thanks to Casey.
What prompted you to do your very first stand-up, and can you share it with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was just so frustrated. I was, weirdly enough, I was so frustrated that I couldn't do improv, and I'd done improv for like 6 years already, and I'd done it through like every professional studio, and for some reason there was this team in college that I really wanted to be on that I couldn't make, and I was like, fine, I guess I'll just do stand-up. I did it at a place called the Funny Bone in Valley Park, Missouri, which now I go by YouthPastorRyan, not because I am one, but because I look like one. That first time I remember walking in not knowing it's this like little bar, and I had this big showroom, and there was nobody in the showroom because it's just an open mic, and I had no idea what's going on, and there was one guy in there who was really nice to me, and I bombed. I had like 2 jokes total in a 5-minute set that got laughs. Starting off with stand-up is hard. A lot of comedy is just the mathematical equation of what makes people laugh. And so I realized, if I can lean more on those things and find those other things that related to people, it's going to really work out. And that's when I started doing it, and I've kept doing it ever since, and it's been a really cool journey.
Would you be able to share with the audience some of the equation that you found was useful, that helped you grow from essentially bombing to being a hit?
Yeah, so the equation, especially, it changes from stand-up to online. And honestly, you can watch a lot of comedians, and a lot of them have different equations that they kind of work with. One of my favorite comedians to watch is a guy named Mike Birbiglia, and the way that he tells a story is very cool. And I am definitely a storytelling-based comic, but it's essentially taking a story, which is a true story from my life, and then I section it up, and I insert jokes throughout it. So it's like you're making a sandwich of jokes, and that's what I tend to do. But all of my stories come from real life. I see a lot of comedians out there that are super creative guys that see this world in a very interesting way. And for me, I've just lived a very weird life. I've jumped out of planes. I'm like scuba dive certified. And weirdly enough, all of it has ended pretty poorly. Like, I was 50 feet under and my oxygen tank ran out when I was scuba diving. The second time I jumped out of a plane, my parachute didn't open right. And it's been all of these things that now I can look back at and realize, it's kind of funny. But a lot of it has been silly experiences that end up being the comedy later.
As you mentioned, you had a very authentic start to your page, and you posted that video after your friend Casey recommended it. Do you have any tips for other people who are trying to start at content or just being in the entertainment industry in general, kind of breaking into that space?
So the entertainment industry has changed so much, and in a really cool way, now we have so many more options with online presence. And I think that's really fun. Find the thing that makes you unique and the thing that you can also be very good at, and fuse those together. And the beautiful thing about stand-up is that it doesn't matter who you are, you have a story to tell. And there's an interesting part of your life. And if you can deliver it with humor, it's gonna be really impactful. And I think that's the most wonderful thing about it, is there's no casting director telling you, oh, you don't look a certain way. There's no person saying that you don't sound a certain way. You are you, and you get to be you. And that's really cool. If you've got something that's kind of fun to watch, it just keeps it fun and fresh. I mean, I know people that play the piano really well, or people that draw incredibly. And one of my friends, her name's Audrey. She has 15 million followers because she does character design with drawing, and it's amazing. But a whole bunch of people were like, yeah, this is awesome. And she was getting like okay work beforehand, but now with TikTok and with her social media platform, it does way better. And that's just so cool for her, because she always had this talent, but sometimes it's about being able to show people what you're doing. Also, I think it's an important thing to note is that even with, like, for instance, not going through like casting directors or things like that, sometimes you feel like, oh, well, I have to have a huge following for people to like pay attention to me. And that's also not the case. And it really is always about conversion and a loyal following. So you can have 300, 400, 500 followers, but these are people that you interact with all the time and that support you and that want to see your stuff. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters, is just having a community.
Are there any especially interesting interactions that you've had with any members of the community that you can recall and share with us?
There's been a couple really cool interactions with the community. I had someone in the community who was diagnosed with cancer, and she was talking to like people in the community and things like that, and it was actually my editor who was helping me with other things at the time, who was like, hey, do you want to set up, like, she loves gaming, she loves the Fallout series, I love the Fallout series, like, it's my favorite game series of all time, and they were like, hey, they've got Fallout 76, but now has an online feature, do you want to play together? And I was like, absolutely. And so we were supposed to game for like an hour. We ended up spending like 5 hours together gaming. We ended up talking about so much and having a great time, and we still talk to this day, and she beat her cancer. So she's doing well today, and it's great, and we still get to play Fallout occasionally, and it's really fun. It's really fun.
One of the first donations I ever did was because I spent a lot of time in pediatric hematology and oncology when I was younger, before I founded the organization. And I noticed a lot of people back in those days, we're going, more than 20 years ago, but they didn't have video games or anything to play in the hospital. So like people would just be like sitting there, like looking at their very concerned parents in the eyes while they were getting chemo, and it was just like not the best situation. So that was one of the first things I did, was donated video games, and I think it was PlayStation systems and all those different things, so that you have something to do during those times. Now you see that's everywhere. So I do love video games. Definitely have a very good purpose for people who are not feeling great, specifically because you can kind of venture outside and enjoy overcoming those challenges through the games. So that's great. That's so nice you did that with her. Are there any people or groups that have helped you along the way in any challenges that you've overcome?
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes it's people that you'd never expect, and it's random acts of kindness. I always feel like that is really important. I've tried to live my life through that. My grandfather was really like that, where he would pick up people that were just hitchhiking, he would take them home, get them a meal, and then give them a bus ticket to wherever they needed to be. And he was just like that type of guy, and it kind of resonated throughout our family to be that type of person. The way that I got into comedy at all was improv, and it was because there was a guy who used to do improv at my school who ended up being a coffee barista where my parents used to go, and they started talking because I went to that school and I wasn't liking that school, and I felt so isolated and alone, and he was like, he should try improv. And it ended up being something that was so much fun, and you had a creative element to it, but also a mathematical element to it, and it was really, really fun. And it was just those little things that have been dropping into life that helped. I mean, definitely organizations. I did a lot of improv classes at a lot of places. Comedy Sports is a great short form place. There used to be Improv Olympic. Second City's still around. There's been a lot of really fun places where I've met people, but a lot of organizations are great. I always feel like you find the people from those organizations that you meet that have those one-on-one interactions that really resonate with you.
For your comedy specials, do you want to tell us a little bit more about, I mean, obviously raw experiences are part of it, but a little bit more about your process for coming up with these and how you work through them and put them together and compose them, and then how you decide on topics and share more about things that are especially difficult to talk about. What is your process for all of this?
I think that it's always finding a purpose. I love comedy with a purpose. I like to be able to weave the jokes in, but at the end of the day, you take something away from it. Because I feel like a really good, funny comedy special that has no purpose, you'll be like, oh, I might like this joke or I might like this joke, but you don't necessarily remember the set. But you want something that's memorable and that people can take away something from it. So my second comedy special is called How to Survive Plane Crashes. And it is the story of my life as it runs through everything. I was much younger. I was flying from Newark, New Jersey to St. Louis, Missouri. And planes are notoriously safe. Like, you can get on, most of the time they don't even need all of their engines. They're just very chill about getting you there. For some reason, this flight didn't go quite that way. We are on a small Embraer ERJ, I'll say it was 145, and on an airline that no longer exists. It was shocker after this story. We've been on the runway for like 3 hours. This plane's been flying all day. We were in Newark, so it was super cold, and there had been icing that had started to form on the wings, but they didn't know that. We take off into the air, and we're flying through an electrical storm, and as we're flying through this electrical storm, we're not getting above it, which I thought was super strange, and it's because they had a pressure problem with the plane where it was like not able to stay pressurized. So if we went up, we were going to lose oxygen. And so they're flying through this electrical storm, and we finally get through it, and then all of a sudden we like Mario Kart drifted this plane. We hit a U-turn, and we start going back into the electrical storm. 2 oxygen masks drop from the front of the plane, just from the front of the plane, which if I had known that it came with, survival, I would have done it. I would have upgraded to first class. We start going through it again, and me and my little brother are sitting right next to the emergency exit row. My parents are right behind me. They're actually in it. So we're going to have to be the people helping for this. And my little brother, whenever he gets scared, nervous, or injured, he passes out. So he's unconscious. Yeah, he just boom. And so he passes out. I still shake. We're the worst emergency exit row team in the history of the world. It couldn't get any worse. Turns out there's icing that has formed on the ailerons. Obviously, they're having a pressure problem. And that's when we're up there. Both engines overheated and shut down because the plane got quiet and it was too quiet. There were people screaming on the plane. The flight attendants, I kid you not, came running through the cabin going, call your loved ones, call your loved ones, call your loved ones. So people are making calls. It's all that.
That's reassuring.
Yeah. But you know what? To be honest, they were panicking too. And for the rest of the flight, we were tilted down like the top of a roller coaster before the drop. But there is no drop. And it was so scary. And we ended up making an emergency landing back into Newark. And we bumped and we skidded to the end of the runway, and as we're skidding to the end of the runway, I look out to my window and I see both ambulances and fire trucks full tilt waiting for us. It was really nerve-wracking. It was definitely the scariest time of my life. And my dad has been in a plane that has been hit by a tornado, and like the plane was thrown in all different ways, and he was like, that still was the closest he ever came to like it being the end. And afterwards he actually talked to the pilot. We saw the pilot come out of the cockpit. This guy had a white shirt on. You could see through it because he was sweating so much. I mean, you could tell. And he talked to my dad. The 3 things that I mentioned that went wrong were just some of them. The list apparently kept going and going and going and going. But we're here now, and that's really the takeaway, is it didn't get us. And I'm happy to just kind of be here and be able to keep smiling and now I tell it as a funny story of like everything going wrong but finding ways around it. I mean, honestly, I'm very excited about the second special as we edit it, because the way that it works is you start with an intro and then it's the plane crash story, but in between the plane crash story, I veer off and tell other tangents about like things that I'm thinking about during these things, but it always comes back to the plane crash story, and it's very fun. I really enjoy it. It's just the people that have watched it have really enjoyed the way that it just kind of weaves, and so yeah.
Absolutely. And when is that all coming out?
Right now we're still in the editing process, and so it'll probably come out towards the end of the year. Yeah.
And then any past projects that you'd like to mention that you really enjoyed working on?
Oh man, the first comedy special was awesome. That's such a weird moment when you're trying to like put that first one together because you've never done anything like that before. But it was very fun. I'm honestly excited about future projects. To be honest, I feel like that's always just kind of keep rolling through. I really enjoyed the series that I'm doing right now about fighting scams and fraud fighters. Because it just keeps it fun and light, and everybody likes messing with scammers. So that's been really nice and really peaceful. I've been working on some new projects involving like animation, which has been really nice and really fun. And I've just been really enjoying the process. Really, it's always about, for me, is finding what's next and having fun with that.
Ryan, I can't thank you enough for being on the show and sharing all of this with us. It's been a pleasure hearing your adventure, and thanks for stopping by for a chat with us and sharing some of your journey and being here.
Well, I appreciate it, Tommy. Thanks so much for having me. I love a good adventure chat, and thank you guys so much for what you do, and everybody watching. I hope that you're having a great day, and I hope that you feel loved, because that's how I end all my things, is just letting people know that you're loved. You're adding a lot to the world, so keep that up.